Hello everyone. Let's start talking about how do we understand our users in this particular lecture. So what we will be doing is understand what means when we are talking about stakeholder analysis, what even means when we are talking about stakeholders, and how we map them. So we will identify all project stakeholders beyond just the end users. We will classify the stakeholders by type, power, interest, and influence using frameworks like the power interest matrix and the onion model. We will also apply stakeholder mapping techniques to reveal conflicts, priorities, and engagement strategies for diverse audiences. We will use stakeholder insights to inform research planning and the participant selection strategies. So let's get started. What is a stakeholder? So a stakeholder is anyone who affects or is affected by or has an interest in the outcome of a design project. Let's say, for example, I want to build a flyover in a particular city. So it's not the commuters, just the commuters who are going to use that flyover once it is built, but it is about all the stakeholders who affect the system. So let's say there will be certain regulations in the city. So these regulatory bodies have to approve the plan. They affect the building of the flyover. There has to be some kind of sponsors who will sponsor the whole activity. There have to be certain kind of providers of the materials who will affect the flyover design as well as the flyover making. Now, who all will be affected by it? Let's say there are lots of shops which are on the two sides of the road. They get affected by it during the construction phase of it and also post the construction is done. Maybe there will be a lot of people who are homeless and they live on these streets. They also will get affected by it. Maybe the activists in the city and across the country might also start showing interest because that flyover will result into cutting down of some trees or bringing in certain kind of disturbances to a culturally rich locality. So whenever we talk about stakeholders, it is a very wide audience. Anybody who affects the proposed solution or when the solution is into action, whoever is affected by it and whoever has an interest in the outcome of the design project. Now, if we take into account all of these stakeholders, we cannot do a user research with all of them. So it is very essential that we know with whom to conduct user research and what kind of user research. So usually the word user research is used by many designers as I will only do a research with the end users. But design decisions involve this much wider ecosystem and we need to take into account this wide ecosystem. So I can say widely that my stakeholders can be put into three categories: the primary stakeholders, the secondary stakeholders, and the tertiary stakeholders. So primary stakeholders are all the users who are direct users who interact with the product daily. So let's say in the case of this flyover, it will be all the commuters. Also, if I need some traffic police personnel, then it is also that person. If I need to set up a toll booth, then it is also the people who will be running the toll booth in case it is run by humans. Then comes the secondary stakeholders. These are indirect users or influencers who might either gatekeep, like you cannot make the flyover, or they might also be the advocates of the flyover, that I need the flyover and it will help in easing congestion over this place, it will make this city's ecosystem more vibrant, it will bring in more development. So all these are reasons for advocacy. Then you have the third category, which we call as the tertiary stakeholders. These are all sorts of stakeholders like organizations, regulation makers, different kinds of market forces affected by the design. So let's say all the shopkeepers who no longer have access to anybody who is passing through that particular place, they also get affected by this design. During the construction process, due to lots of travel restrictions or due to extreme congestion, people will also try to avoid to come to their shops. They might have to also deal with a lot of dust as well as noise pollution. So whenever we are trying to explore the stakeholders, we are trying to look at it firstly as primary, secondary or tertiary stakeholders. Let's take another example of a washing machine at home. So the primary stakeholders in this particular context are homeowners, who are the users of that product. So they directly use the product, operate the product. So it might be the man of the house, the woman of the house, and maybe some children also who are using that particular product. So different kinds of family members. We might also have a household help who is using that particular product. So these beneficiaries of this particular product are definitely the family members who get to wear clean clothes as a result of it. The operators, they need to understand the washing cycles, and they need to understand that the washing cycle depends on the laundry, the type of laundry, how dirty it is, what colors are into it, and they are going to get the direct benefits of it. Now comes the secondary stakeholders. So let's say my washing machine breaks down and I have to call the service engineer. I have to also call a plumber in order to fit that particular machine. In case there is a problem with the plumbing, there is some blockage or other problems, I have to again call a plumber. In case the water flow is getting affected because of some clogging happening, I have to again call a plumber. The people who are making detergents for this particular washing machine, I can also say that they are the secondary companies. These can also be companies which are making fabric softeners and other such things, which will go as a product inside the washing machine to produce the cleanliness that is desired. So service and repair technicians for maintenance and repairs, utility providers like water and electric supply companies, detergent and supply companies, so manufacture essential products. So they all together ensure an optimal performance and provide the resources required for operation of this product. Then comes the tertiary stakeholders. So appliance manufacturer and the designers over there, they innovate the new features which are going to go into the washing machines. The environmental regulations, let's say, so this set efficiency standards like Energy Star. So these are all organizations. You have to always remember, whenever you are doing this stakeholder identification, the stakeholder has to be human or a human entity. So when I am saying environmental regulators, it talks about a body of made up of human beings, an organization, a regulating organization which sets efficiency standards like Energy Stars, and we have to follow them. Then comes the appliance industry associations. So that is even a bigger organization, of which many of these manufacturers are part of it, and they will be establishing these best practices and quality standards within the organization. So what the tertiary level stakeholders are trying to do is influence technological advancements and oversee safety and sustainability. Now, why is this stakeholder analysis so important? It helps us in avoiding blind spots and build a buy-in, and it also informs priorities and helps us in allocating resources during the design process. So let's look at avoid blind spots and build buy-in. So let's say in the washing machine context, I forgot to consider the service technicians' ease of servicing the product. So because I happen to skip them, then they are facing lots of difficulties in delivering the appropriate service. They might be facing a lot of difficulties in opening up the machine and reaching to the right part which needs to be repaired, or they might be facing troubles related to getting the right parts, any kind of such things. And what will happen as a result of it? My end users will be frustrated with the product each time the product breaks down. So, missing stakeholder means missing needs. Stakeholders who feel heard early are more likely to champion the project. They will start talking good about the product in the market. Ignoring them creates resistance and redesign cycles. It's going to this inform priorities. Different stakeholders have different needs. So, the manufacturer needs to think about eco-efficiency. So if I need to bring in this eco-efficiency, I want to bring in cost efficiency, I might have to do something about the drums material. While daily users want that whatever you do about eco-design or cost-efficient design, when this washing machine is operating, it should not cause too much of noise. That is their most important concern. Now I need to map both these requirements early on so that I know what is the priority that I need to set. In case I am trying to bring in a material which is more cost efficient or more ecologically beneficial, however, that particular material and whatever goes in the connections, they lead to increasing the noise levels when the drum is spinning. I need to consider whether this 10 decibel increase in noise level is acceptable to people or not, or should I have to go back to my other drum design which was little bit more expensive, but the consumer was happy with the fact that it makes less noise, acceptable levels of noise when it is operating daily in their house. So mapping of stakeholders and what they need helps you in mapping what are the requirements they have and whether these requirements are conflicting with each other or whether they are in synergy with each other. And then we have to give the right kind of priority. So not all stakeholders require equal time, they do not have equal power, they do not have equal amount of interest, and we need to prioritize the engagement accordingly. So once we have identified all the stakeholders, we have to understand the power that each one of holds and the interest they have in the system. So when I talk about power, it means how much influence that they have in this particular system. When I say interest, how interested are they in this particular designed system? So we will map each stakeholder by their power to influence decisions and their interest in the project. So on the x-axis, I have interest. On the y-axis, I have power. Low, high, low, high. So any stakeholder who has extremely high power and extremely high interest, we have to manage them very closely. If the stakeholder has high power but low on the interest level, we have to ensure that we keep them satisfied. If the stakeholder has both low power and low interest, then I need to just monitor those stakeholders. In case interest is very high but power is very low, I need to keep them informed. Now why I do these things, let's understand with some examples. So let's take the first quadrant, which is high power and high interest. So these are basically the people who are the key decision makers. They engage deeply into that particular design project. So let's say product managers who are designing the product, head of R&D, they have very high power as well as very high interest in that particular design project, and we need to closely manage them. When I say we need to closely manage them, implies that we have to understand what these stakeholders are interested in producing, what kind of regulations is on their mind, what kind of values they prefer. Let's say your manager wants a product which is very eco-friendly, then in your design you really need to consider about how to make the product more eco-friendly. If your company gives higher priority to cost effectiveness over all other features, then in your design you have to always justify everything in terms of the cost effectiveness. That's why we are saying that it is a category of stakeholders we need to manage closely. Now let's take the low power but high interest. That category we will be calling as keep informed. So these are the people who are champions and advocates for grassroots support. So let's say if I have these household users who are doing this laundry daily, or if I have these service technicians, they have to go every time the machine breaks in. They have low power in the system because they do not have much power to make decisions regarding the design project. However, they have very high interest in this project because they are supposed to either daily use the product or they are supposed to repair the product whenever the product breaks down. So I have to keep them informed about every change that I make, and if that change has certain kind of implications, I will have to also keep them informed about all the ways in which I am designing. So if you look at it, I would put, because these two category of users are primary users and secondary users, whereas the previous one which we were discussing about manage closely, they were the tertiary stakeholders. So we are considering this stakeholder analysis from two different perspectives. One perspective is the who is in direct contact or who is responsible for making this product keep working whenever this product is not working, or provides all other sorts of support like being a detergent supplier or being water provider or electricity provider. So, although a particular stakeholder might be in direct contact or provides all the support infrastructure which is required to make the product work, it does not necessarily mean that that stakeholder has very high decision making power regarding the design project or not. The tertiary stakeholder, in this case the manager, actually holds much more power. So, the primary and the secondary, they do hold high interest, but their power is low. Now, why I am looking at this analysis both ways? Because it means different things that I have to do in the design process. So, I know that it is important to understand what my users want, the end users, and what my service people want. So, I will design questionnaires in order to gather those input from them. When I make a particular product, I will put it into their environment and test it with these particular users, because their interest is very high, and if they do not like my product, they will decide not to buy this product or not to advocate for this particular product to their neighbors or whoever is trying to buy a new washing machine. Now, I have this other category where power is high but interest is low. So, I am calling them as keep satisfied. So, here I am supposed to ensure that there is an alignment right from the very beginning the project starts, and I have to ensure that I have kept them satisfied enough so that they do not create a blockade for my design project. So, let's say for example, a senior vice president of manufacturing becomes very unhappy that, oh, your design is very difficult to manufacture, or your design has a lot of issues during the assembly process. It requires so many layers of manual assembly that there are lots of errors happening. So, I would not like this particular design to go ahead with it. So, from the very beginning itself, you have to bring this vice president of manufacturing into your team, and as your design is progressing, keep this person informed and aligned so that this person agrees, yes, this particular product we will be able to manufacture and assemble efficiently. Whenever that person identifies certain problems, be proactive to resolve that and keep this stakeholder satisfied. I might also have regulatory compliance officer or even the quality assurance officer of my company who need to be also satisfied, though their interest in the design project is not very high, because they are overall responsible for looking at the company's output. Their power is very high. If they realize that this particular product will not be able to satisfy the regulatory requirements, they can stop your product from progressing to the next stage. So, keep them informed, keep them satisfied, get their feedback right from the beginning, and then you will be able to get a much more successful product. Now, let's look at the zone, which is about monitor. So, this is somebody who has low power as well as low interest. So, track for changes in power or interest, because they might any day start dominating you. So, let's say all the detergent suppliers and the logistics partners. The logistics partners can be anybody who is providing water, who is providing electricity, or whoever is helping you transport the product from your company gate to your end customers or your distributors. They might any day become more powerful. So, say for example, when Apple first started its smartphone series, most of the chips were coming from Samsung. However, Apple knew that as soon as Samsung also introduces its smartphones, the best way they can, or the easiest way rather say, the easiest way they can stop Apple's smartphone production is by stopping the supply of chips. So, as a result, right now their power is low, right now their interest is low, but eventually their interest will increase because they are going to produce their own smartphones, and when this happens, they can stop my chip supply. As a result, their power will increase. So, I have to start my own facilities for production of my own chips. So, we try to do two different kinds of mapping. The first mapping is mapping that we do is understand the primary, secondary and tertiary. Then I try to understand the power and interest matrix. When you are trying to do this primary, secondary and tertiary, you can use this onion model. So at the onion model, the core of it is the product core. So it consists of all the primary daily users of the product. So the person who operates the washing machine every day, that is your primary stakeholder and forms the core of this particular model. So now this might be the man of the house, the woman of the house, the children of the house, or a household help. It can be an old person, it can be a young person. Then comes the next ring, which is the direct users and immediate impactees. So household members doing the laundry, the service technicians. Then I have the middle layer, which is influencers, gatekeepers and advocates. So retail store manager, YouTube or blog reviewers and detergent brands can be put over here. Then you have the outer ring, which is composed of all the organizations, market forces, regulatory bodies who are also stakeholders to be satisfied. So each ring represents the increasing distance from the product and as a result the direct contact with the product. And the previous model that we designed is again something that you use to understand the power and the interest of each one of them. So when you are doing this stakeholder mapping, you have to see whether you identified the stakeholders in each of these mentioned categories. So my first category is the decision makers. So anybody and everybody who has the authority to approve or reject the design direction. These are usually high power and may vary in interest. So you will see, have you been able to identify all the decision makers or not. Next, I will call as the users. So these are the people who interact with the product daily, and they might have varying skill levels and they might have varying needs. They might also have varying cognitive capabilities and different kinds of motor capabilities. Now you have the next category is the influencers, people who shape opinions or guide decisions. These are advocates, champions as well as your critics. Then see if you have identified all the support staff or not. These are all those people who help users succeed. So this can be the customer service people, you have to train them, or your trainers, it can be the service technicians. They are essential for adoption of your product. Then you look at all the affected others. So these might be organizations, communities or entities impacted by the design beyond the direct use. So let's say a neighbor who lives downstairs and does not like the fact that although the machine is not causing much sound to you, but it is causing too much of vibration to that person, they might also complain to the societies, and you might have to get rid of your washing machine. So you have to think of a lot of these people who might get affected because of your design. Once you have this entire list, you can use this particular template to do your stakeholder mapping. So I will write down my stakeholders like stakeholder 1, stakeholder 2. So you will have to write down these names. So you can use this template wherein these are sticky notes, and then you will be putting them into this power and interest matrix. So let's say I identified that stakeholder 2 should go over there, stakeholder 8 should go over here. So when you are using this matrix, you can also think of using a huge whiteboard because you are doing it in a team. Create this power and interest matrix as a line drawing. Then you can have lots of sticky notes and you can keep putting the stakeholders into the appropriate boxes and discuss at the same time. So the best way to predict the future is to involve the people who are going to build it. So that's what you have to always remember when you're doing the stakeholder analysis. If you follow the steps of the categories of the power interest and the onion model, you will be able to capture all the possible stakeholders that are required and give the exact kind of priority and decide which one needs to be just kept informed, who needs to be kept satisfied, and who needs to be closely monitored, and so on. So the key takeaways from this particular lecture are as follows. Stakeholders shape the outcome of your design activity. Identifying all stakeholders early on prevents blind spots, builds buy-in and avoids costly redesign cycles later. You should always map the power versus interest, because a primary user might not be the most powerful and a tertiary user might be actually very powerful and might also have very high interest in the project. So this power interest matrix helps you in prioritize engagement. You classify them as manage closely, keep satisfied, keep informed, or simply monitor them. Think in layers. The onion model maps stakeholders from core daily users outward to the wider ecosystem, revealing proximity to the product. Use structured tools. So systematic mapping with matrices and templates ensures no stakeholder group is overlooked and engagement is deliberate. So that brings us to the end of it. Here are some references for your further reading if you are interested. And thank you so much. See you in the next lecture.